This 11-metre-long flesh-on-bone replica of Sarcosuchus imperator, a supercroc which lived about 110 million years ago, is the brainchild of US paleontologist Paul Sereno and US herpetologist Brady Barr. After discovering the most extensive array of supercroc remains ever during a dig in Gadofue in Nigeria in 2000, Sereno was inspired to reproduce the giant creature for museum exhibits. Paleontologists first identified Sarcosuchus imperator as a species in the 1960s. When Sereno made his find, on an expedition funded in part by the US National Geographic Society, he dubbed the creature Supercroc. On that dig, Sereno discovered supercroc vertebrae, limb bones, armour plates, jaws, and a nearly intact 1.8-metre skull. One of the largest crocodiles that ever lived, Supercroc was as long as a city bus and could weigh up to 10,000 kilograms. Replica designer Gary Staub used over 2,000 kilograms of clay along with polyester resin and fiberglass to recreate Supercroc. Staub designs dinosaurs for museums and universities such as the Smithsonian Institute in the United States. Shrek, a New Zealand sheep famous for his prodigious fleece, finally went onto the shears, yielding an impressive 27 kilograms of wool which were auctioned for charity. Shrek had roamed free on a remote sheep station on New Zealand's South Island for 6 years before finally being rounded up and brought to face the shearer's blade. Shrek's wool, estimated to be enough to make 20 large men's suits, was sold on the internet to raise money for children's medical charities. A zoological park in India's southern Tamil Nadu state has become home to a number of wild animals released by circuses following a ban on live performances by wild animals by a court in 2001. The Arigna Anna Zoological Park in the state capital Madras received 4 lions, 1 tigress, 1 leopard, 2 Himalayan bears and a few rhesus monkeys. The animals were voluntarily given by the Gemini Circus. The animals were first taken to the Rescue and Rehabilitation Centre at Vandala for medical checkups for diseases. Later, when declared disease-free, they were taken to the zoo. After the Supreme Court banned shows by animals, the circuses have been in the red and finding it difficult to keep the animals. The 3-decade-old Wildlife Protection Act prevents exhibition of lions, tigers, panthers, bears and monkeys in circuses. Some 22 circus companies have more than 1,000 animals in captivity. These horses are the stars of a historic expedition that aims to shatter a 70-year-old record. It's late in the night in Uzbekistan's Kizilkum desert, and the 3 Akal Teki stallions are being rested after a journey from the Turkmenistan border across into Uzbek territory. The Ashgabat to Moscow trek on horseback has been organised by Alexandra Tolstoy and her husband, Shamil Galimzianov. Alexandra Tolstoy is a distant relative of Russian author Leo Tolstoy and no stranger to adventures of this kind. Their 4,300-kilometre journey began in the Turkmen capital Ashgabat and took them through Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan and Russia, all the way to Moscow on horseback. It's an epic journey by any imagination, taking the duo and their small support team through some very hostile and barren landscapes. It is a journey that follows the route of a similar expedition back in 1935, when a group of 28 Turkmens rode the same distance in 84 days. Alexandra and Shamil aimed to break this record. But for them, the expedition was more than just breaking a record. They wanted to publicise the Akhalteki horses, a Turkmen breed praised by specialists and sportsmen for its noble stature and outstanding stamina. The 30-year-old former London stockbroker is a veteran of difficult and adventurous journeys. In 1999, she and 3 other women took part in an 8,000-kilometre journey on horseback and by camel along the ancient Silk Road. It was on this journey that she met husband Shamil and Izbek, who was their guide along their route from Uzbekistan to China. Shamil, a former professional show jumper, is passionate about horses, and in particular, the Akhalteki. Having crossed into Uzbekistan, Alexandra and Shamil faced the most difficult landscape ahead, the Özciyet Plateau, 1,000 kilometres of rocky, barren land, infested by poisonous snakes. But man-made bureaucracy, not physical hardships, are what Alexandra and Shamil feared most. And on a journey such as this one, crossing numerous frontiers, there's bound to be plenty of it around. Their worst expectations came true when Turkmen authorities refused to let the couple's 3 Akhalteki horses enter Turkmenistan, forcing Alexandra and Shamil to ride from Ashgabat to the Uzbek border on a hired local Akhalteki, poorly trained and unfit. With their own horses back, they were ready to take on the 3,200 kilometres left to Moscow, trekking across Kazakhstan and Russia. Alexandra and Shamil donated money raised from their exhibition through sponsorship and post-expedition lectures to a foundation that does charity work in Russian and Eastern Europe. Alexandra also wrote a book about the journey. These panda twins at China's Wolong Panda Reserve are set to become superstars like their mother. Five-year-old Hua Mi, born in San Diego Zoo in 1996, returned to her ancestral homeland under an agreement which requires cubs of panda bears born abroad to be repatriated within 3 years. The twins, who have not yet been named, were born within half an hour of each other and are currently being cared for by reserve staff after being abandoned by their mother. A custody battle could be looming over these twins. Hua Mi mated naturally with one of her male suitors, and a few days later was artificially inseminated with the semen of another. Scientists say it will take a DNA test to determine who the real father is. Experts at the reserve say they faced a number of challenges in being the surrogate parents of the new twin cubs. Premature cubs, for example, don't know how to go to the toilet or feed properly. If they are together with the mother, the mother teaches the cubs, but now the zoo has to do the job. Hua Mi is now sitting back and having a well-deserved rest after giving birth to the twins. Though panda fertility rates in the wild are drastically reduced in captivity, but Chinese forestry officials say pandas were rebounding from the brink of extinction thanks to better and bigger habitat, but they were not yet out of the woods. Some 1,500 giant pandas survive in the wild, mostly in the mountains of southwestern China, while over 160 live in captivity. The zoo said it was particularly proud of Hua Mi's breeding success given her American background. Pandas come on heat only once a year for a couple of days and can be highly selective about their mates. Hundreds of cheering spectators watched in Bad Harzburg as 25 jockeys and their camels participated at the Orient meets Occident 4-day festival. 18-year-old jockey Nadine Salaman probably spoke for many of the spectators when she explained that people imagine camels to be very good-natured and sometimes a little stupid, but in reality they are very kind and very sensitive. Participant Christine Siebert is the proud owner of 20 camels with which she organises rides in her native Bavaria in southern Germany. She says camels are very stubborn, very intelligent, and they take advantage of it if you allow them too much. And the camels at these races seem to confirm this. Every once in a while, one of the animals at the start decided to run in the other direction. But when they did reach their top cruising speed, it can equal 55 kilometers an hour. Two cloned kittens have been born using a new cloning method that may be safer and more efficient than traditional methods. Genetic Savings and Clone promises to clone anyone's pet for $50,000 or so, and started with Chief Executive Officer Lou Hawthorne's own pet cat. The two kittens, Tabuli and Baba Ganoush, were born to separate surrogate mothers. The company's report was not submitted for the traditional scientific review process and has not been scrutinised by cloning experts. But the company is less interested in the scientific questions and medical promise of cloning and more interested in its business model, helping people make copies of their beloved pets. Stalking teddy bears and towels before retiring to harass the family dog, 12-week-old cheetah cub Bungie is blissfully unconcerned by the cameras trailing him around his foster parents' estate. Not far away, his sleek black-spotted mother Bagheera streaks across a semi-arid scrubland and into a spacious pen where German Christa Heinrich waits for her. Heinrich, who raised the cheetah, and her husband Manfred, a vet, achieved the impossible. The German couple managed to breed cheetahs in captivity. They were given 2 South African cubs when they retired to Spain with the hope of breeding them. Spain's climate is ideal for cheetahs, and the estate is big enough to allow them to run. Less than 10 baby cheetahs were born in Europe over the last few years. Only 12 to 15,000 of the felines still live in the wild. To breed, Manfred kept daily diaries of Bagheera's reproductive cycles for 3 years and drove her to a German zoo to find a mate she fancied after she turned down Shere Khan, the male she grew up with. And soon, Bungie was the result of the union. One of the main obstacles to successful breeding is the habits of females, who are on heat for very short periods, solitary by nature, and picky about who they will mate with. They are not interested in males they have grown up with, even if they are not blood relations. Nor do they look kindly on male cheetahs that have attempted to mate with them when they are not ovulating. The Heidenreichs hope to convince Bagheera to consider her companion Shere Khan as a mate by splitting them up for a long time, but she still recognized him as a sibling. Female cheetahs in the wild will usually come into contact with males only when they are mating. So cheetah owners who put a female who is not fertile with a male who tries to mount her risk turning her off him. Nor is artificial insemination likely to work, as a female cheetah only releases her eggs on penetration. Popular as hunting animals and elegant pets, with rulers ranging from Charlemagne to Akbar, 16th century emperor of Mughal India, cheetahs are the only big cats that can be trusted not to turn on their owners if tamed. And for sure, this little one is already a handful. There's quite a lot of sunbathing going on around the Roman temples of Torre Argentina, an archaeological site in the very centre of Rome. More than 100 cats who live on the site and are now protected by the council, taking life in a pretty relaxed fashion, and they don't care who knows it. The only battle they have to worry about is that of constantly looking their best. As far as they are concerned, their role as a major tourist attraction is incredibly important, and people come from all over the world just to look at them. Cats of all kinds have always lived in the shadow of the ancient ruins of Rome, leading the council to declare them a biocultural heritage. But it is the cat keeper, or Gattara, organised by voluntary organisations who put in the real work of feeding and caring for the famed felines. Mealtimes are certainly a family affair, but there is only time for a quick break before returning to their adoring public. Some of Rome's residents are positive about the cats in their city. But some say to see them as national monuments is slightly excessive. Positive or negative, the cats are taking it all in their stride, but would like to make a few requests. Definitely no dogs, and perhaps the traffic could try to make less noise. An international campaign has been launched to reduce accidental catches and deaths of sea turtles in the Mediterranean. More than 400,000 sea turtles are caught each year around the world on the hooks of long-line fleets dedicated to catching swordfish and tuna. 60% of these catches are made in the Atlantic and 10% in the Mediterranean, particularly by Spanish fishing vessels. Between 50 and 70 Spanish longliners, most based in fishing ports in Spanish towns, specialise in fishing for swordfish with long lines. Environmental agency Oceana, the first international organisation dedicated to research and protection of the oceans, is coordinating efforts to reduce the amount of sea turtles killed and injured by fishermen. Not all of them die, but the serious injuries they sustain result in death in many cases, killing at least 30% of the sea turtles. Oceana proposes changing the shape of traditional hooks by rounded ones that could reduce the catches by 90%. Many of these turtles are born on the beaches of Florida and the Caribbean. Those that manage to evade fishermen operating in that area often end up caught by hooks stretching along the Mediterranean coast. According to Oceana, if action is not taken, the sea turtle population could be seriously reduced in a few years' time. Frodo is a 15-week-old bear who lives in the East Berlin Zoo, a little bundle of fun who keeps his keepers on their toes. Frodo's parents, Tina, a 16-year-old bear, and Johannes, an 8-year-old bear, were also born here. But Frodo is being hand-reared by zookeeper Michael Horn. Frodo's mother cared for him simply too much and licked the fur off the young cub whilst she cleaned him. Now Michael feeds Frodo, even when Frodo doesn't always feel like doing as he is told. Until he gets older, Frodo will be bottle-fed and is gaining weight in leaps and bounds. He has already quadrupled from the 300 grams he weighed when he was born. When he is fully grown, he will weigh around 60 kilograms. This means that Malayan bears are the lightweights of the bear family, but with that, they can also be the cutest. Malayan bears live in the tropical rainforests of Southeast Asia, but the increasing destruction of their natural habitat is also affecting their population in the wild, making Malayan bears an endangered species. As a tropical animal, the Malayan bear has short fur, and like all bears, they are omnivorous. With their long tongues, they can pull insects out of their hiding places and lick honey from cracks in trees. And with their long claws, they are excellent at climbing trees and often sleep in the treetops. Frodo also spends most of his days sleeping, only he does it in the arms of his bear keeper, Michael.